I think that's you, Senator.
The Secretary of Transportation, Mr. Sean Duffy, who will testify on the President's fiscal budget of 2026 request for the department. And I'm delighted to be joined by our new ranking member, Senator Gillibrand. And starting off this morning, I want to recognize the Lilly family. I just found out that you were here, and we're so honored that you are here and grateful to have you with us today. I look forward to crafting our fiscal year of 2026 bill with the same collaborative spirit that former Chairman Schatz and I shared in recent years. And the programs and projects that all of our bills support have a direct impact on the lives of all Americans every day. We're thrilled to have our chairman here with us today, Susan Collins, of the overall committee, and we will get started. While the priorities in Mississippi may differ from those in New York State, we can all agree on the underlying mission of enduring a safe and reliable transportation system. Last year, our subcommittee produced an appropriation bill that had strong bipartisan support and was passed nearly unanimously coming out of committee. That was a lot of hard work to get there. But as a result, our former majority leader chose not to bring any of the 12 appropriation bills to the floor last year, and we were forced into continuing resolution, which seriously undermines Congress's ability to fulfill its most fundamental duties. I know that Chairman Collins and Vice Chair Murray are once again committed to making sure that all of the fiscal year 2026 appropriation bills are marked up in committee and considered in the full Senate. Secretary Duffy, thank you for being here today to testify on the budget requests from the Department of Transportation. I have enjoyed our recent conversations and appreciate our mutual admiration of rural America. While we recently received the skinny budget, as we call it, we look forward to a more detailed breakdown of a proposed budget funding. Our bill simply cannot be written without it. I look forward to hearing more about DOT priorities. Our subcommittee is very interested in better understanding the magnitude of staffing reductions throughout the department in order to ensure that the Transportation Department has the workforce necessary to carry out its mission. We all know that just days into your tenure as Secretary, you were faced with a tragedy that underscores the critical role of U.S. DOT plays in transportation safety. We continue to mourn those who were lost during the horrifying incident over the Potomac, and we recognize that the status quo is not sustainable. We must take bold action to prevent future aviation disasters. As I mentioned to you in our call together last week, I'm truly thankful to have you at the helm of the department during this critical period for aviation safety and transportation writ large. Your sincerity and determination in wanting to solve the problem of modernizing our nation's air traffic system is a welcome change, and I know you inherited a lot. You've got a tall drink of water in front of you. Getting this proposal right is critically important to the traveling public, so we look forward to receiving more details of your recently announced plan. I am very supportive of the additional funding requested for the FAA to hire more air traffic controllers to manage the increased traffic in our national airspace systems and to bring on more critical safety staff to help address the ongoing FAA aircraft certification reform and oversight efforts. While there's a lot to talk about the department's budget request, I was disappointed to see that the administration proposes drastic cuts to the Essential Air Service program. As we have discussed, the EAS program connects our nation's rural communities to the broader transportation network by facilitating safe air travel for customers traveling to and from smaller markets like in Greenville, Mississippi, Tupelo, and Hattiesburg, Mississippi. I know you understand the importance of this program from your time as a congressman when you had multiple EAS supported airports in your district. Drastically cutting this program will have a severe impact on rural communities and regions that rely on having access to the broader transportation network. Additionally, new businesses rarely locate in areas without dependable commercial air service, so supporting these rural airports is vital for future economic development. I'm very pleased to see the significant investment this administration is proposing in rail safety, nearly doubling the funding for the Consolidated Rail Safety and Infrastructure Grant Program. In contrast, the last administration proposed slashing funding for this program by more than 50%. I have also been encouraged by your strong statements of support in our nation's shipbuilding industry and for improving the pipeline of qualified merchant mariners. Our bill encompasses the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy in Kings Point, New York, which you recently visited, as well as 6 state maritime academies. These institutions are absolutely essential for facilitating commerce and strengthening our national security by educating, training the next generation of American mariners. The administration's support for the maritime industry is further demonstrated by the funding proposed for the Port Infrastructure Development Program, otherwise known as PIDP. The request recommends $550 million in PIDP, a roughly $430 million increase above the current spending level. It's also worth noting that the previous administration sought just $80 million for PIDP in its FY25 budget request. In addition, the increased funding requested for the Assistance to Small Shipyards grants totaling $105 million is another strong signal of support for American shipbuilding, which is important to Senator Collins and myself for sure. As we approach the final year of the IIJA funding and our authorization counterparts work toward a surface transportation reauthorization bill, we need to make sure that our appropriations bill strikes a balance to meet the needs of all Americans, especially those in rural communities which face unique transportation and economic development challenges. To conclude, I believe that our funding decisions should be guided by fiscal responsibility and with the taxpayers in mind. Secretary Duffy, I look forward to hearing from you and working together for the American people to ensure that we have the safest, most reliable transportation network in the entire world. Now I turn to Senator Gillibrand for her opening statements.
Thank you, Chair Hyde-Smith. I'm honored to be serving alongside you as the THUD Subcommittee. I first want to acknowledge the family that is here. No one understands the need to improve air traffic safety and aviation safety than Tim and Sherry Lilly. We mourn with you at the tragic loss of your son, Sam. I've met with many families who have lost loved ones to air crashes, particularly the Colgan Air flight that crashed in Buffalo. But I can tell you from experience, the most effective advocates for reform and change are parents such as you who have lost such a dear loved one. So your presence alone is extremely meaningful, and we're very grateful that you're here. Thank you. The subcommittee has a very long-standing reputation as being one of the most bipartisan subcommittees, so I'm very excited to be part of it. It's also bipartisan because every state has enormous transportation and housing needs, and the only way to address them is for us to work together. The transportation needs of New York may be different from Mississippi, but we all want safe and efficient transportation, and I know that we can work together for our local communities. In New York, every single mode of transportation matters. Transit and rail service are the backbone of New York City and provides the most efficient way to get around. New York's airports serve as a gateway to travelers from across the world, and we've seen how critically important this is to our air traffic control system. Over the last week, we saw what happened at Newark. That was frightening, terrifying, in fact. Not to mention the challenges that we faced at all airports across New York. The maritime needs in New York are significant with the Merchant Marine Academy and the SUNY Maritime College. I look forward to working with you on those two projects specifically to really show what America can do. Highways and bridges are a lifeline for reconnecting the cities and suburbs in every New York community. We really do need the federal government to fund all modes of transportation, and so picking and choosing is unwise. Secretary Duffy, welcome to this subcommittee, and thank you for your energy and enthusiasm in rebuilding America's infrastructure. I'm particularly excited about your focus on aviation modernization and safety. Your budget request for fiscal year 2026 includes a lot of good news for transportation, particularly for FAA's air traffic controller hiring and training, highways and rail grant programs, and shipbuilding revitalization. The budget request also cuts $1.1 billion from DOT, but does not specify which programs have been cut. So I hope that you will be more specific about these cuts because we know both the good news and the bad news. Cuts to Amtrak and public transportation will be very harmful to New York and to the eastern seaboard. As I've said before, an all of the above strategy is what's appropriate for New York State. Aviation safety will also remain a top priority. I also look forward to hearing about your modernization proposal for the air traffic control system. Everyone agrees that modernization is urgently needed. We all experience flight delays and cancellations, but nothing is more terrifying than what happened at Newark. So we really have to focus on that. The administration's overall budget includes a lot of cuts and savings. In fact, there's $163 billion in savings from non-defense discretionary programs. So we know the administration has money on the table. So far, we have not seen a budget proposal that would put any of these savings towards air traffic control modernization, so we're hopeful that that will be done. Aside from the budget, I'm worried that the department has buried itself in red tape by re-reviewing 3,200 competitive grants that have been previously awarded, eligible, and met all other criteria. I think you might need to hire 24 lawyers to get that done if you want to do that on a timely basis. There's no doubt that the months-long effort to re-review grants is slowing down transportation projects in every single state. The department's also struggling because it's lost thousands of employees through the deferred resignation program. It simply makes no sense to create more unnecessary duplicative work on grants when you have fewer people to re-review them. Despite these challenges, I'm very confident that you want to help rebuild American infrastructure with the traditional bipartisan cooperation that this subcommittee will afford. So thank you, Mr. Secretary, for your testimony today. And thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. We're going to begin with the questions. Mr. Secretary, at last year's budget hearing, I asked your predecessor about private-public partnerships with the FAA through the Federal Contract Tower Program. Specifically, I asked about how the Trent Lott International Airport in Pascagoula can become the 8th Mississippi airport to join this important program. I was told then that the department, through the FAA, was making significant progress with the airport in bringing this tower into the federal program. Yet today, the Pascagoula Tower has still not been admitted. I do not understand what is causing the delay, but it is troubling that it has taken so long for this transfer to occur. Mr. Secretary, what is the most recent update on this project, and will you commit to working with me and my staff to help the Trent Lott International Airport finally join the Federal Contract Tower Program this year?
Madam Chair, I appreciate the question. I don't have an update for you at this point right now, but I will be happy to go to the FAA and get an update and give it to you as quickly as possible.
Great. All right. I am going to pause my questions. I think we have everyone that we need here, and we will go with your opening statement.
Oh, thank you. Chair Hyde-Smith, Ranking Member Gillibrand, Chair Collins, members of the subcommittee, thank you for having me today. I appreciate it. It's good to elevate from the House and come over here to see you all in the Senate. It's great to be here. My aim over the course of this hearing is to provide you a sense of how building big, beautiful infrastructure is at the top of President Trump's priorities and how we can all work together to build the infrastructure that connects our people and moves our products across this country. That is the aim. Our department has already saved taxpayers more than $9.5 billion in the President's first 100-plus days in office. Those savings include money pulled from projects tied to social justice, to climate requirements. There's been some boondoggle projects and inefficiencies at the department that we focused on to garner these savings. Now, a lot of you have reached out to me and have concerns about grants. I get a lot of calls from you and your staff. Just to note, we've inherited an unprecedented backlog of 3,200 awarded projects without signed grant agreements. Many of these projects date back to 2022. The last administration, I would argue, were unorganized and they were unfocused, as projects around the country were stalled by inaction and by inefficiencies. No one is more frustrated with the inefficiencies of the process more so than I am. Currently, get this, there are 10 to 14 different systems at DOT to track the grants at DOT. There's not one system, there's 10 to 14. So I'm looking to streamline that process so we have one process to track grants. I would like to put a dashboard out so all of you and your constituents can actually look in real time and see where grants are at and how they're moving through the process. I think that kind of transparency is critical for this body, but also for the American people and your constituents who look to see where they're at in the grant-making process. I want to give you some radical transparency if we can make this system work. It's under development right now. The Department of Transportation on the budget front is one of the few non-defense federal agencies to receive an increase in federal funding under the President's budget for fiscal year 2026. The reason is pretty simple. The President, he likes to build. He's a builder. He spent his career building, and he sees what we do at DOT as an agency, a department that builds things, and he cares about that. Our budget carefully focuses taxpayers' resources on items critical to our most fundamental mission of safety and investing in transportation infrastructure. We have pushed forward with the approval of over 400 grants totaling $4.9 billion in the President's first 100-plus days. In total, the President's budget request of $26.7 billion in new discretionary funding for fiscal year 2026 is a $1.5 billion increase from fiscal year 2025, or simply put, a 5.8% increase. I know my time is about to expire, but I would be happy to take your questions on what's been happening at Newark, what systematic problems existed at Newark that caused the outages with air traffic control, and also our ideas on how we have to build a brand new air traffic control system. The system we currently use, it truly is 25, 35, 40 years old in some places. We should have paid way more attention to it as a country. We've let it age, and now we're seeing the cracks of that age play out in real time for us. I believe the system is safe. There are multiple redundancies throughout the system that keep people safe, even the frustrations in Newark. When we've slowed traffic down, the key is not efficiency, the key is safety. And so when we slow traffic, it's about keeping people safe. When they take off, we want them to land at their destination. And so we'll make sure that we have a flight load that matches the system and the number of controllers that we have on duty. But with that said, I agree with America's frustration. No one likes delays. No one likes cancellations. Love airports, but I don't want to spend 4 hours in an airport waiting to see if my flight's going to take off. And I think that's the feeling of so many Americans. And I think this is a moment in time that we can all work together to make the critical investments and execute on those investments safely, but in a really fast time frame. We can't wait 5, 10, 15 years to do this. The build can't take 10 or 15 years. We have to do this at an expedited speed. And if we do that, I think this is a moment in time we're going to be able to pay these investments forward, not just for everyone here, but we're going to pay it forward for future generations. And we can build an air traffic control system. I use the example of my iPhone. I think I'm over my time, but if I could just have that, you can update your iPhone, right? It's a device that if Apple develops new software, they send me a notice and I can upgrade this. I just put AI on my phone as an upgrade from Apple. I can't update my flip phone. Remember the Razor? You guys, old school? You can't update that. But you can update this. I want to build a system that's like the iPhone that we can continue to build upon as new technology becomes available. And we can improve the efficiency of our airspace and the safety of our airspace. And I'd be happy to talk more about that in today's hearing, but also as we look to future conversations about what's necessary and what's needed. With that, I'm happy to take your questions. I'm sorry for going over. That's a critical mistake on my part. I understand the frustration of someone testifying going over, but happy to take your questions, and thank you for having me here today.
Well, we thank you for your opening statement, and now we're going to go to Senator Collins.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. First, before I begin my comments, let me salute you for your leadership of this subcommittee. I once had the position that you now hold, and I know how important it is, and I want to welcome the new vice chair as well. And I know that you will work together and continue your great work. Mr. Secretary, I want to begin by thanking you for recognizing so swiftly the need for a replacement and modernization of our air traffic control system. And the presence of the Lilies here today reminds us all of what is at stake. So thank you for being here as well. For years, this committee has put money into modernizing the air traffic control system, and we just never have seen real results. A radar would be fixed here or there, but what we really need to do is completely modernize the entire system, and I know that that is your goal. That's going to cost significant money, but it is an investment that we must make. We are facing a crisis. When I learned from you that we were still using copper rather than fiber, it is stunning. So my question to you is, will you work with the committee on the concept of having emergency funding that would cover the entire cost of this much-needed replacement?
I appreciate the question, Senator, and I'm grateful for the conversations you've had with me on this topic. Yeah, I'm happy to work with this committee and the whole body. I think one of the mistakes of the past is we did do piecemeal funding without a big vision, and sometimes we were trying to deploy high-tech ideas where the system that we were operating off of was not ready for those high-tech ideas. And so what I'm going to ask and I don't know what vehicle you want to use, I don't know what the approach will be from this body, but I would like this body to give the DOT and the FAA the money up front, advanced appropriations. And with that, I will be happy myself or the FAA come back, I think, on a quarterly basis and give you updates on the progress, good, bad, and ugly. Are we hitting our timelines? Are we behind? Are we on budget? I think America and the body, if you buy into this idea, deserve that. I also think we're going to have to think about, can we get permitting reform? This can be slowed down by the permitting process, but if we're laying fiber, and we're not building, 4-lane highways, we're not building skyscrapers. It's a pretty streamlined approach, but if we're going to build fast, which is necessary, I do think we'll need permitting reform as well from this body, and I think I'm committed to working with all of you on however you can envision us doing this together. I would welcome the opportunity. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. I also want to echo the chair's concerns about the administration's budget cuts for the Essential Air Service Program. This program is a lifeline to rural communities, not only in Maine, but across America. In Maine, we have 5 airports that would not have commercial air service, but for the Essential Air Service Program. They include Augusta, Waterville, Hancock County, Bar Harbor, Rockland, and Presque Isle, Maine. Just last weekend, I participated in a groundbreaking for a new terminal at the Presque Isle Airport. So this is really important for economic development, for getting to medical treatment, for tourism. It's so important to rural America to have this program. How would you plan to support air service to rural communities who rely on this program absent a sufficiently funded EAS program?
I anticipated I was going to get a number of questions from virtually everyone on this panel about this program. I understand your concern. I am going to work on trying to bring efficiencies to the program, bring costs down on the program. As I dig into that, I'd be happy to partner and communicate with all of you on the committee as we go through that process. Again, I do understand how meaningful essential air service is for so many communities across the country, and I need to do some work in the coming weeks. And as I do that, I'd be happy to have a conversation with you about how we're seeing it and how we think we can do more with less.
Thank you. I think you're going to need to do more with more, but I appreciate your commitment to work with the committee. Maine is home of the Maine Maritime Academy, which has a well-earned reputation for educating some of the best mariners anywhere in the world. And fortunately, the faculty and the midshipmen are eagerly awaiting the completion of the Academy's new state-of-the-art training vessel, which is going to greatly enhance mariner training and preparedness. I understand that you recently saw Maine Maritime's training vessel during a trip to the Philadelphia shipyard, and I welcome you to come see it again after it has completed its voyage to the beautiful coast of Maine. Could you talk just briefly, because we're out of time almost, about the emphasis that the administration is placing on better preparing our maritime workforce?
Yeah, I appreciate the question, and I'll be quick. The ship is beautiful. By the way, Myriad is building ships on budget and on time. The Maine is one of them. But I think we have to invest in shipbuilding in America. The seas are so important for defense, for moving products, and we have ceded this territory to Japan, South Korea, to China specifically, and we have to revitalize American shipbuilding. It's going to take vision, and it's going to take help from this body and presidential leadership, but I do think it's important. And then when we have those ships, we need mariners to sail those ships. And our academies across the country are critical to bring out those young men and women who can operate the great vessels for this country.
We look forward to your visit.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Collins. And Mr. Secretary, as someone who represents dozens of airports in my state, and we all frequently fly every week so we can get to DC and back, we're all very troubled by the mishaps and challenges within our nation's air traffic control systems. But the staffing shortages and the technological issues, particularly in the Newark airspace, they're not isolated incidents. And these have been happening across the country, and they highlight a system that is under tremendous strain. But in many cases, the technology is outdated and simply cannot meet the demands of the aviation system. A perfect example is the use of the radar systems from the 70s and the times that you've held up the floppy disk and said we have to order things off of eBay to repair. It's pretty alarming. Congress has a clear opportunity and a responsibility to act, and I commend you and President Trump for the recent commitment to invest in upgrading this critical infrastructure and to reinforce the air traffic workforce. It is certainly much needed and a step in the right direction, but as you are aware, the committee has a long bipartisan history of directing more funding to the FAA for modernization and for hiring critical safety staff, including air traffic controllers and then the safety inspectors. Will you explain how the additional funds requested in your budget will serve as a down payment to jumpstart the FAA's new modernization efforts, and how this effort enhances existing next-gen activities for which the committee has previously appropriated tens of billions of dollars throughout the years? Could you explain that?
Yes, if I could just make one clarification. We do try to buy replacement parts on eBay for this really old equipment. Sometimes we can't even find it on eBay, so we're trying to use 3D printing to craft replacement parts for the system that we use. And just one other point, we do see cracks in the system. we'll see those cracks to the tune of multiple hundred per week. Now, again, systems aren't going down, but if you look at how the system is operating, it should be troubling for everybody, and a warning sign that time is not on our side, and it's important that we make the investments. What we're doing right now, and I think the air traffic control shortage is critical. We're 3,000 short. We've been 3,000 short for some time, and so. By the way, you'd think it's not that hard to think through, just get more controllers into the system and through the system. It actually is more complicated. What we've done is we're trying to get the best air traffic controllers who score on the test into the academy first. So we made a best qualified category. If you score in the 90 plus percentile, we're going to streamline you quicker into the academy. If you're 80 to 90, you take a different path. That's important. The medical part of this was really challenging. It was taking way too long, months. We've worked to get our academy prospects, getting the medicals done sooner and then getting the results from those tests back quicker. We're paying bonuses to make that happen to the doctors who do the test, but we don't have another choice. We have to move up our academy grads. We've offered counseling. I was at Oklahoma City, and a lot of the students were saying, listen, if we could just get some extra help, we can make it, but a few of us are having a little bit of issues in this little space, and instead of washing out, we'll get those controllers to make it, but could you give us a little bit of extra counseling if we need it, tutoring if we need it? And so we've implemented that for those controllers who are just on the edge to make sure they can make it through the program, because we have a 35% washout rate at the academy, 35%. If we could just move that to 25%, we're going to make up a real difference in the number of controllers that we get through the academy, passing the test, and then training up. And then I think what's also important is we have great air traffic controllers on the job. They can retire per the rules of Congress after 25 years of service. Well, these are the most experienced. So we are offering them a 20% bonus up front to stay on the job. Please don't retire. Stay and provide a service to your country and your community. And I think we're going to get a good take-up rate on that as well to keep more of those experienced controllers on the job. And so it's increasing the pipeline, and that's one part. And then keeping those controllers on the job is the second part. And I think those two taken together are going to, again, it's going to take some time. Can I just make one of the last point on this? And I think it's important to note, I can't take a 20-year experienced air traffic controller from Denver and move them to the Philly Tracon for Senator Gillibrand and say, let's just use this controller to control the airspace. Because that really great controller from Denver has to get trained up on the Newark airspace, and it can take them upwards of a year to get trained specifically on that airspace. So I just can't move controllers around and address the shortfalls that we have in certain TRACONs or towers. It takes time. And even training up more controllers, once they're out of the academy, it takes a year to 3 years to get them fully trained. And so this is going to be a longer process, and all of us working together to have some vision is going to be what's key to resolving this in the next 1, 2, and 3 years.
Thank you, and thank you for that forward thinking and the ways that we can extend that. I want to talk briefly about the Air Traffic Collegiate Training Initiative, since we were talking about that. And, I've spoken to you several times about my work in Mississippi to help boost aviation workforce, so critically important. And the need in this field is obviously, as you're just describing, endless. But the FAA Air Traffic Collegiate Training Initiative, in partnership with select colleges and universities, has successfully taught the basics of the air traffic control to qualified students, which allowed them to quickly progress through the FAA Academy. What can this committee do to help the additional schools into the ATCTI program to help increase the number of the ATC staff? And would that require also expanding capacity for the FAA Academy?
That's a great question. So I do think if this committee wanted to consider a competitive grant program, the simulators are expensive for air traffic controllers, and a lot of these schools it's challenging to make the $1 million+ investment in those simulators. And so if there was a competitive grant program that you all wanted to consider to go to some of the, I think there's 5 schools around the country that want to be involved in training up those air traffic controllers, I think that would be welcome. What's also it's been hard. We have air traffic controllers at Oklahoma City who are doing the training. And the former air traffic controllers were teaching all the classes. What we've done is some of the classes, you don't need an air traffic controller. You know, if we're doing some math classes, we can take just a professor to teach the math class. I don't need an air traffic controller. So we're going to bring in professors to teach classes that professors can teach. And that means we have more air traffic controllers to teach air traffic control classes, which means we can expand the capacity of Oklahoma City, getting more young people in and through the academy. And so, again, because we were it's the chicken or the egg, but we weren't getting enough air traffic controllers to come in and teach at the academy. This is allowing us to use the ones that we have to stretch them further. And again, that means I think we can, next year we're at 2,000 right now, I think we can get to 2,300 in the next fiscal year. Kids, I mean, through the academy.
Through the academy. Thank you. And briefly, because I'm way over my time, would you speak to the importance of supporting our small shipyards, especially in the wake of decreases in the dedicated funding in recent years?
100%. Again, I think this is an all-of-America approach to shipbuilding. Larger, smaller yards have to be supported. And again, I think it's going to take all shipyards and all of government if we're going to be successful in ramping up American shipbuilding.
Well, the funding, the administration's proposal to fund these grants at $105 million is a demonstration, certainly, that you're directing the support there, and we certainly appreciate that. I am going to ask Senator Gillibrand to state her questions.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Mr. Secretary, the Department of Defense is required to consult with the Department of Transportation prior to deploying counter-UAS systems. You and I have talked about this. I've partnered with Senator Cotton on the Counter Act to update DoD's counter-UAS authorities and ensure that all bases in particular are covered. Our bill will lead to an increase in the volume of requests to the Department of Transportation for real-time execution and pre-coordination of counter-UAS packages. Unfortunately, DOT has lost numerous staff who focus on the Spectrum Engineering Office. Will you commit to increasing staffing for the Spectrum Engineering Office so the DOT is not holding up DoD's counter-UAS missions? And if not, what's your plan?
So I think we can be more efficient. I think we can do more with less. But we are mission driven. And so if I see staffing shortages that will prohibit us from meeting the mission, and too many people have taken a deferred retirement program, I'm going to no doubt hire more people in.
Mm-hmm. So just so you understand the legislation, what Senator Cotton and I are trying to do is give authority to the Department of Defense for the four corners of any military site to be able to take them down immediately so that we can actually assess who they are, why are they hovering, because the incursions over Langley, you should brief yourself, you should get a classified briefing, highly concerning. Second, we then want to be able to track and trace that drone when they leave the base so that we know who's launching them, from what field, who owns the field, from what ship, who owns the ship. That's where we need your coordination. But it has to be instantaneously, like within the 30-minute window, or we will lose that opportunity to arguably take down or get information about an adversary.
So first, I appreciate your work on this. This gets to be very complicated, but this is incredibly important.
Yep.
If we just look at what's happening in Ukraine and Russia, what's happening with drones is probably a wave of the future. I do think we have to think through how do we allow the commercial side of drone use to expand, and how do we still protect critical infrastructure with no-fly zones, restricting airspace. And the department the FAA has been working on that now to think through how we do both of those missions as part of the equities of FAA.
Thank you. I want to ask you also about the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. We've talked briefly about this. What is your plan to modernize it? Are you prepared to ask for the funding that you need? And are you committed to making sure our Merchant Marine Academy is on par with any other service academy in the United States?
Listen, I appreciate the question. This is in Kings Point, New York. It's a beautiful place with rotting infrastructure. I was talking about this with you earlier. The midshipmen went 4 months without hot water, taking cold showers at the academy. They eat off paper plates because their dishwasher was broken. They have mold in their dorms. This is not a facility that deserves to have the name America associated with it. And we would ask for some flexibility with how we use the money that's been given, but I think we have $170 million that's been appropriated by this committee that I don't think has been effectively used. There's been roadblocks, I think, at Myriad and at the Academy. We're going to work with the Army Corps of Engineers to develop a plan on how we use the money that's been
Yeah,
given.
I'd be grateful if you would submit the plan to me
Yeah.
in writing into the committee so we can study it and be helpful.
Absolutely.
And then one point of interest is the DOD has these annual reports on the incidence of sexual assault in the military, and it's been a useful barometer of, are we providing oversight and accountability? Is the military justice system worthy of the sacrifice of our men and women? You are due a report within the next couple of weeks to have the annual sexual assault and sexual harassment report. Will you commit to making sure that gets to us?
Yes, I'll see where the status of that report is, and we'll no doubt try to be timely on
Thank
that
you.
to the Senate.
Thank you. Capital investment grants. In the fiscal year 2025 continuing resolution and the bipartisan infrastructure law, we provided $3.8 billion for capital investment grant programs for new transit projects. There are 6 of these projects that are national in scope of significance. They are already signed full funding grant agreements. Do I have your commitment that you will move forward on these projects?
Are these announced grants?
Yes,
Or
so
these,
Los
or-
Angeles, the West Side Subway Section 3, Illinois, the Red Line Extension, Minneapolis, the Southwest LRT, New York, the Second Avenue Subway Phase 2, New York, New Jersey, the Hudson Tunnel Gateway, and Washington State Linwood Link
So
Extension.
if you're asking me if I plan on canceling those grant agreements, I do not.
Thank you. Madam Chair.
Now we go to Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Secretary, welcome.
It's good to be with you, Senator.
Do you know what the Center of Excellence for Liquefied Natural Gas is?
Why, yes, I do.
Where are you going to put it?
I think it's going to go in your state, Senator.
When are you going to announce it?
Very soon. I know our teams have been working together on that. If you want to front run it here, we could, but I know that we were working on an announcement together, and our teams have been working.
I want to front run the hell out of
All
it.
right.
Where's it going to be put?
Is
In
it-
Louisiana?
Is it Lake, what it would,
McNeese?
Lake Charles, Lake Nice, Lake
Yep.
Charles?
And
Yeah.
you're going to make an announcement, Sean, the next few days?
Yeah, I know we've been working on some finer points and details, but yes, that's where it's going to go. And I think, as if my memory serves me, I think we're trying to get this stood up and moving by this summer.
Well, I want to get it announced first,
Sure.
so your colleagues can't take it back.
No one's taking anything from you, Senator. It's coming your way.
I see my old friend, Mr. Plotkin here. Watch him like a hawk, by the way.
You said you do not want to make Senator Kennedy upset on this project.
Well, your predecessor told me a number of times that it was about to be announced, and it was never announced. I don't mean any disrespect. I just finally didn't believe him anymore. I don't think Elvis is alive either. So I learned. But if you could go ahead and announce it, it sure would. I'll buy you a soda and a nice hat.
I would appreciate that.
Okay. When you got to the department and became secretary, did you fire a bunch of air traffic control?
I did not, Senator.
Did Mr. Musk do that?
He did not.
Where'd all this stuff come from?
So there were about 350 probationary employees at the FAA that were let go, and we're trying to whether there's 46,000 people that work at the FAA, so this was a minuscule percentage. But even air traffic controllers who were probationary employees were excluded. All safety positions were preserved at the FAA, including air traffic controllers. And so I think it's a narrative that some in media and in politics have tried to drive as if we're not focused on safety. But I have been crystal clear, and I think I've said this until my face is blue, though it's not today, but it could be because we did not actually fire any air traffic controllers, Senator. We've been hiring air traffic controllers as quickly as we can.
All right.
And so I don't know how many times I have to say it.
Let's say it one more time.
Yes.
When you became secretary, look me in the eye, did you fire any air traffic controllers?
I did not.
Okay.
And I did hire air traffic
Did
controllers.
Mr. Musk?
So by the way, Mr. Musk doesn't fire or hire anybody at the department. I do, and so no, he didn't fire anybody, including air traffic controllers.
Okay. When you probably don't have to, but when most people go through TSA, they take your picture. They have a little camera there, and they say, "Look in the camera. We want to take your picture." Now, underneath it is this little bitty sign that you can barely see, and I think it's written in Sanskrit that says, "This is optional." I won't let them take my picture.
I won't either, Senator.
And they promised us that they destroy the data. Okay. Once again, I don't believe that Elvis is alive either. Senator Merkley and I have a bill. There's been no evidence that this has prevented any acts of terrorism. And I just don't know why the federal government has to collect this huge database of every American who flies picture.
I thank you for that. I couldn't agree with you more. I actually try to turn my head away from the camera when I go through and they're taking pictures. There's no need. I think Americans have a right to privacy. And I don't think you need a digital scan of my face to allow me to have the right to fly on an airplane. I think it's absolutely wrong. And what does it do to security? I don't think it breeds any more security in our airspace, on our airplanes. And so thank you for doing that work. I couldn't agree with you more.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, and we go to Senator Murray.
Well, thank you very much, Chair Hyde-Smith, and welcome to the committee, Ranking Member Gillibrand. Look forward to working with both of you on this extremely important committee. And I do want to say that I am really honored to have Tim and Sherry Lilly with us today. I know how hard this must be for you, and I also know how important it is that you are here today. We all want to fix this air traffic system to make sure this never happens again. So your presence means a lot to all of us. Thank you for being here. Secretary Duffy, let me turn to you. As you know, every day billions of dollars in commerce, countless lives depend on your agency to keep our roads, our rails, our skies, and ports running safely and smoothly. You're responsible for getting hundreds of billions of dollars provided by Congress out the door to build thousands of infrastructure projects across our country. Yet since January 20th, virtually every dollar and transportation project has been held up at some point. And you are causing a traffic jam, from freezing funding for projects to creating new hurdles by reevaluating grants that had already been approved, adding red tape by forcing unacceptable political demands on state and local transportation agencies, and outright actually canceling and cutting grants. You know, this is not normal. No prior transportation secretary has cut funding for previously awarded grants in this manner. It is really, to me, a political and partisan approach that really actually sets a terrible precedent. I know at the House Appropriations hearing yesterday, you blamed the previous administration for absolutely everything, but I just want to say this today. The last administration did not make the decision to hold up thousands of grants, had nothing to do with the new red tape that you have created, and certainly did not let go of hundreds of staff to help get those grants out the door. In fact, the last administration increased the number of grants signed from 330 in its first year to over 1,500 last year, executing more than 3,000 350 projects. So you can't blame Secretary Buttigieg or President Biden. It simply doesn't pass muster. All the while, we know you have pushed out nearly 5,000 Department of Transportation employees, firings, buyouts, and you have actually said you will fire thousands more. You know, we just don't need fewer people keeping trains on the track or making sure that the airbags work or rebuilding our roads and public transit systems. We actually need more of them. And in recent months, as we have heard already, we've seen unacceptable chaos at the Newark airport, the devastating crash at DCA, and a lot of other close calls. And while you talk about modernizing the air traffic control system, you have forced out more than 2,000 FAA employees who support those air traffic controllers, the technicians, the mechanics, the engineers, the IT specialists at the FAA, who were working on modernization, which I think is a huge mistake, and you just can't paper over it. Now, regarding your recent FAA proposal, I stand ready to work with Chair Collins, along with Chair Hyde-Smith and Ranking Member Gillibrand, to make sure that Congress does provide the resources FAA needs in our fiscal year 2026 funding bill and across future years in order to address the glaring issues and failures we've seen, and to do so without shortchanging other priorities. So, Mr. Secretary, let me start with aviation safety. You've, as you know, proposed to modernize the air traffic control system. This committee does have jurisdiction over the FAA's facilities and equipment funding, but your proposal was not included in the President's 26 budget. We need the actual dollars and cents plan. So let me ask you, how many of the over 2,000 FAA employees that have been pushed out over the last few months will be needed to be brought back in order to modernize the system?
I don't think any of them will need to be brought back. And I would just say there's, in the characterization of the last 3 minutes, I would disagree with much of what you said. But I do, the DOT and the FAA, we're not jobs programs. This is about a mission. And I'm committed to you and this body to accomplish that mission. And can we do more with yes? Of course we can do more with yes. And if some people who want to retire, we should let them retire. Let's bring in people who are hungry then that want to do the mission.
I don't disagree with that.
I appreciate that. But that's what we're doing.
But what we have seen is really critical employees to the mission are now gone. As I said, technicians and mechanics. You can have all your air traffic controllers there, but if they don't have the support staff, we can't know that they're doing the job. That's what I was referring to.
But I would say that we don't have a support staff issue with FAA. We don't have enough controllers for the skies that we have in America. And so that is the issue that I'm addressing.
Okay, well, let me just say that since you became Secretary, air traffic controllers have twice received fork in the road emails encouraging them to resign, which you have sent, I know, sent mistakenly. But it is.
But none of them have taken it. They can't take it because they're not included.
Well, they received the mail. You're an employee. You got the same email, and I just think it's really callous to suggest to controllers these emails saying your work's not valued. So do you know who sent those emails to our air traffic controllers?
You can talk about the system that we have to send emails out. I think it's antiquated, old, and
I just asked who.
I don't know. No, I don't know how they would have gotten those emails.
You don't know who sent them. Nobody's been fired for sending those.
That they would have had the wrong email for an air traffic controller versus someone else in the FAA. No, I'm not going to fire someone over that. But what I am going to do is, in lightning speed, we've developed a plan to fully rebuild the air traffic control system. And so the tech team that I have in place at the FAA, they've been doing a remarkable job because it happened very quickly, and oftentimes government doesn't work that fast. And they also saw the problem that all of you have seen, and we have been working really quickly to develop a plan and present a plan. You mentioned money. I do think this is the money that we're going to need for this new air traffic control system is not in this budget, because I don't think we can wait until October 1st to get the resources to begin the process.
I recognize that, and I am concerned as Vice Chair working with Senator Collins how we're going to provide that funding. This is a question we're going to have to pursue. I do want to say you and I have talked about the importance of the FAA's oversight of Boeing, and I know you visited there in March. I'm going to be tracking carefully to make sure that the more than 50 new staff needed to support Boeing oversight are hired, and if you backfilled any employees. And Madam Chair, I know my time is limited, but I did just want to mention budget cuts because the skinny budget that you sent to us proposes about a $3 billion increase to specific DOT programs, but overall your top line only increases $1.5 billion. So you spell out about $300 million in cuts directly. You leave $1 billion in cuts that this budget implies and are not there. So we need the details of that in order for us to do that. Do you know when we will get that?
I don't have an exact date for the exact budget, but I look forward to getting it to you as quickly as possible. Obviously, we work with the OMB on
You do
the whole
realize the
budget.
discrepancy in the numbers, and we need to see
Yeah,
where
but,
that is.
but they'll all match up when we give you the complete
budget.
details. Yes.
And do you know when that will be to us?
I don't have a date from OMB yet when that's going to be completed.
Okay, thank you.
And Senator, if I would love to work with you on I-5. I do think that's an issue that I know the delegation cares about, and I think there are some simple, maybe not simple, but easy things that we could do to think through how we could move that forward more quickly. And again, there's some certain laws in place that are prohibiting the advancement of the project, and I would love to have an additional conversation.
Okay.
I think it's a project that's
Happy to
worthy
get in
and
touch with you
should
on
be
that.
done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Senator Moran.
I know I-5.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Mr. Secretary, thank you for your presence here. More importantly, thank you for your presence in the air safety world that you are now operating in. After your confirmation, you became the Secretary. The first time I ever met you is on January the 29th at Reagan National Airport, and I appreciate the manner in which you conducted yourself and the things that you have done every day thereafter to make the skies safer and to honor the Lily's son and every other tragic loss that occurred that night on that flight from Wichita, Kansas. I appreciate you. I want to talk a little bit about some of these things that are related to that event, that tragedy. First of all, prior to the Army Aviation Brigade resuming helicopter operations at the National Capital Region in late April, did the Army or Department of Defense coordinate with you or the FAA? Did you then review and approve their re-entry into the field of operations?
So what we did after, I think it was 36 hours after the.
You said no. They came back. Did they consult with you?
When they came back, when I was talking about, are we talking about the off of runway 33, the restricted airspace?
Yes.
They still can't fly through that airspace. We have no fixed wing helo cross traffic.
And other airspace at Reagan?
There's still no cross traffic, but what you have seen is some helos at the Pentagon taking off, sometimes carrying VIPs and sometimes doing training missions, and that has been a concern.
And nothing has changed in your order to prevent them, to allow them to return, true?
Well, I hadn't prohibited them.
They did it on their own.
They do, yes.
But the problem is they could change their mind. And I want to know whether there's consultation between the Army and the Transportation Department, you or
so-
the FAA.
So Secretary Hegseth paused any helo traffic out of the Pentagon, which I commend him for that. But we are going to continue that pause at the FAA at our discretion, and our teams are working together. I'm very concerned about the amount of traffic that's coming out of the Pentagon. And I do think if there's training missions, those training missions can be done at certain times of the day when we have less traffic into DCA, number one. And if there's VIP travel, I would like to know who are the VIPs. Who is traveling on these helos? Who classifies? I don't think any of you here get helicopter travel anywhere, and I would consider you all VIPs. Who's traveling,
It's
Senator?
one of the questions I intend to ask
Thank
in
you.
appropriation hearings as we have Defense Appropriations Subcommittee hearings. I would like to know the answer to that question
If you'd
as
share
well.
that with me too, I'd appreciate it.
And I've introduced legislation that I think is of value. In 2000 FY19, I said that wrong, in FY19, NDAA allowed prevention of DOT to require installation of ADSB equipment on those Army helicopters. It didn't stipulate in or out, but it allowed legislation that was passed by Congress allowed the Army to operate without ADSB. I've introduced legislation that would eliminate that NDAA provision, which I guess would put more back in your court to make decisions. Is that something that you would support or do support?
It is, and I think in regard to the it's not simple to turn it on and off. It was a little more complicated than that on the aircraft, and if they're doing training missions or flying through busy airspace, ADS-B out should be on. However, if there was an actual national security mission at play, true national security, how do they quickly turn it off? Because we don't want enemies to see our aircraft. But that yes, all of them should have ADS-B out activated.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I want to highlight, so that you're not disappointed, that I also care about essential air service, along with my colleagues, and let your stereotype of this committee, this subcommittee, be firmly implanted. Hugely important to Kansas. We also have issues related to air traffic control, in this case, separate from kind of the normal air traffic control towers. We utilize contract air traffic control towers at some of our smaller airports. I'd love to hear from you that that's a program that you're aware of and supportive of.
I'm aware and supportive of.
Thank you. And then I want to highlight the importance of CRISI grants. Your department has significant opportunities to increase railroad and traffic highway safety. And finally, in regard to tariffs, 1979 agreement on trade civil aircraft has been a great benefit to this country. We have trade surpluses in the aviation and aerospace world. We certainly export more than we import. And we are hoping that you will be a voice in discussions within the administration, within the cabinet, about the value of allowing this trade agreement since 1979 to work its course and let it continue to do the good things that we have been able to accomplish with an integrated supply chain that makes America #1 and allows Wichita, Kansas to be the air capital of the world.
If I support the president's efforts to actually bring more manufacturing and more fair trade to this country, to our people. I've also brought up the 79 agreement. I think on net it's an $80 billion export benefit to the U.S. Aviation. So the point is well made, and I've communicated that to the powers that be in the administration.
Mr. Secretary, thank you for using your position for good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Secretary, welcome. And let me first begin by thanking you for your assistance to expediting the release of $220 million for the Washington Bridge. That is very critical to our state. It really is the linkage between one side of our capital city, Providence, and the other. Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary.
I would love to come up in the summer and check that bridge out.
I think you should come up. And by the way, I think you should also check out our restaurants. We have the best restaurants in America.
I was there for the first time with my wife this last September and was shocked at how beautiful your great state is.
Thank you, sir. But let me pose a question that I think all of my colleagues have. That is, there's still significant amounts of DOT money that have not been released. It was properly awarded, authorized, appropriated, et cetera. Can you give us an idea of when, and will all of these funds be forthcoming?
Yeah, so I do think it's important to know what was left for me, and I know that all of you, when you get an announcement, you want the grant agreement so you can build a project. But between Obama and Donald Trump, from election day to inauguration day, Obama team announced 48 grants. And then from Trump to Biden, the Donald Trump team announced 100 grants. And Pete Buttigieg, between election day and inauguration day, announced almost 1,000 grants. 1,000. I told that to Senator Schatz as well before, but this is a lot of grants that were announced. And so the workload is real. And if I could just show you a chart, I have a chart here that will indicate how many grants we have grant agreements on. And these are fiscal years from Secretary Buttigieg, but you can see at the start of even the last administration, they weren't moving as fast as we're moving. So I'm committed to getting through this as quickly as possible. We're at a pretty good clip, and I think it's going to continue to pick up as we work through the process. And I think there's technology that we can deploy to make this go even faster.
There are some concern that these projects not being evaluated on engineering and other aspects, cost benefits, but there is issues of climate change and social issues more than economic issues or transportation issues. Are you including DEI in these evaluations and climate change?
Yes, in regard to in regard to the grant agreements that the grant agreements that we have out now and the announcements, I am. And some of the requirements, if you want, I'll share them with you, and I can read some of them to you if you want, but.
No, I think this is a very realistic question. Most people don't consider infrastructure, roads, bridges, et cetera, to be DEI qualities, nor do they, after all the work that's done by DOT, by EPA, as something that would be challenging to the environment. In fact, most of these projects, I would suggest, are designed to cope with changes, and you can call them anything you want.
So there are a lot of requirements in the grant agreements in regard to DEI and in regard to climate change, and there was adding a lot of costs and time onto the projects. So what I've done is tried to pull those out and say those requirements are no longer necessary for you to do your project, and I think I'm going to save you money and allow you to move quicker on your projects that are so meaningful to your communities.
So what you're saying is you will eventually release the funds, but you will modify the arrangement so that they don't have to do certain things. Is that accurate?
Well, so in regard to the announced agreements, but the announcements, but we don't have grant agreements. We're drafting grant agreements that don't include these issues.
But you're committed to fulfilling the grant.
Oh, listen, yeah, I don't.
Another way to say this is that you're not going to defund projects because you object to language you consider to be DEI or
No,
climate.
we're just trying to pull out that language unless it could not be rescoped or pulled out and it's just fundamentally something different. No, this is easy to pull this language out and save you money and time.
Again, I think the faster, and you do have a challenge before you, the faster you can get these funds to the states, the better off.
As
we
evidence,
are.
I've gotten a couple to your state pretty quickly.
And you have my thanks for that. My time is dwindling to seconds, but look forward to working with you, Mr.
Thank you,
Secretary.
you as well. Thank you, Senator.
Senator Britt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to just start by saying, Secretary Duffy, we appreciate the way that you handled January 29th and the tragedy and all that has unfolded afterwards, and just want to welcome the Lilly family here and express our deepest condolences for the loss of your son, Sam. Watching you over the last few months, your grit, your tenacity, you're willing to speak up to make change in the face of the unimaginable. As a mom who is sitting here with my daughter, watching right over there, thank you for fighting for your son's legacy and making sure that, as you said, and I've heard you say that it's synonymous with air safety, with upgrading our system and making sure that others are better as a result of this. Thank you. I'd like to start by highlighting a few projects in the great state of Alabama, and want to thank you for talking with me before your confirmation, allowing me to talk to you about the importance of so many things, but in particular, one of my very top priorities is Alabama's I-10 Mobile Bay River Bridge project. It's a significant investment, and it is critical to helping the state bring this to fruition, to be able to partner, obviously, with the federal government. As you know, the Mobile River Bridge is a critical piece of transportation infrastructure, not just for the state of Alabama, not just for the region, but literally the entire nation. I mean, it connects from California to Florida. You can't get there without coming right across this bridge. And so whether it is moving people or moving commerce, it is a primary transportation artery that we must take a look at, and we've got to upgrade. So obviously we've made a lot of progress in this area. But the one thing that we are waiting on is the TIFIA loan for the project. And I want to stress how absolutely important that is to completing this project. And would love to ask you for your commitment to, expeditiously taking a look and reviewing ALDOT's application so that we can get this moving, because the longer that this goes on, the more it costs, and then obviously the more challenges that we have from both a safety and a commerce perspective.
Time is money. So by By the way, it's a great program. I'll look and see what the status is, what the status is, and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible.
And when you'll commit to taking a look at it and looking
Yes.
at the overarching impact and the need for it in order to carry this to fruition.
100%. I'd say these are the kind of projects that also the president cares about. The big, beautiful roads and bridges that connect
Absolutely.
our country and move products, the important infrastructure.
Absolutely. And on that too, I mean, it is a vital financing tool, so we're going to have it. You're going to be meeting with AlDOT later this year, and so I'd love to follow up with you additionally after this on that as well. I also want to mention the Chrissy grant, which I understand is now in its final review. The grant will provide the essential infrastructure improvements. It's going to allow the freight rail to continue to meet the growing demands of the Mobile port. So the Mobile port has been the fastest growing port the last 6 years in a row. I think this is an excellent opportunity to see how when we utilize all forms of transportation, land and rail and sea and air, we've got an airport project that we're doing there that is going to be transformative. I know you have a lot of things on your plate, but as you are moving across the country, I think this is an excellent example of how transportation can come together for the greater good, not just for the region, but the nation. And I'd love an opportunity to visit that with you.
I would welcome that.
Excellent. And on when we're talking about big, beautiful transportation projects that you mentioned, President Trump has made it a priority. He has said publicly that he wants to see I-65 widened. He wants to see it to be a 4-lane road there on each side. He said he was committed to making that happen. Look, we know how important that is for our state. Anyone who wants to travel in Alabama gets stuck on I-65. However, all of these great people who during the spring and summer want to come to Alabama's beautiful white sand Gulf Coast or maybe even the Florida Panhandle come right down 65. And so would just like your commitment to continuing to take a look at that. There's no way that project happens without a partnership with the federal government. I want your commitment to making sure that we take a look at what President Trump has promised and we figure out how to make that happen.
I would just say the president's priorities are also my priorities, so yes, I'll definitely take a look at that.
Excellent, excellent. We are glad to hear it. I want to associate myself with the comments from almost all of the members here when it comes to rural transportation services. The essential air services is critical for a state like Alabama. We have 55 out of 67 our counties are rural in nature. Making sure that they're connected and vibrant and have the ability to move across places is important. I mean, Alabama is home to many small airports, and they truly play a vital role in those areas being able to continue to grow and thrive. And so in the broader context of FAA modernization, how are you going to ensure that these rural areas are included in the efforts that you have, and how do they continue to have access to both safe and reliable air transportation?
So just, I also had a district that was very rural in northern Wisconsin. I understand rural America. We're a little colder than you are in Alabama.
Just a little
up
bit.
north.
We're going to have a good football game, by the way, coming
yes,
this fall.
we will. But listen, I want to work through that. I completely understand everyone's questions on essential air service. I knew you were all going to ask me questions about essential air service, and I get it. If you give me some space to work through what I think we can do, I will partner with all of you, and we're going to figure out a pathway forward.
Well, thank you for your service. My time is up, but I also want to say thank you for putting family first. Your example with your family, obviously having my daughter here, though, just shows that that's the most important thing as we serve this nation and try to leave it better for the next generation. So thank you.
Thank you for your example, Senator.
Senator Coons.
Thank you, Chair Hyde-Smith and Ranking Member Gillibrand, and thank you, Secretary Duffy, for appearing before us today. I do hope we will get your actual full budget soon and have the chance to review that with you. And when we do get it, I hope we will see sustained investment in Amtrak. I regularly take Amtrak back and forth from Wilmington to Washington. They hit record ridership and record profitability just this past year. It also employs 1,500 people in Delaware, which is the midpoint of the Northeast Corridor. The Northeast Corridor is just really, frankly, the only aspect of Amtrak that has been financially stable for a long, long time. So if the NEC experiences cuts or some attempt at privatization or a sharp change in direction, the impact will really harm the mostly heartland states and rural part of Amtrak's national network. Elon Musk has called for privatizing Amtrak. It's made steady, positive progress in recent years. I'd be interested in whether you'd commit to us to maintaining strong investments in Amtrak when we finally receive your full budget.
So, listen, I take Amtrak as well. I ride the Northeast Corridor. I will tell you this, do I think we could do better?
Yes.
Could we be better? Yes, I think we
Yes.
could be better. It's faster than driving through the traffic. When you're going up north, I've experienced that more recently. So again, I would love us to think through together, how can we make this better? How can we make it faster? I mean, the rest of the world has high-speed rail. Why can't we think through a different way to do it? So I'm committed to the idea that we want to be able to move people along the Northeast Corridor. We don't have enough room for people to all take cars, so let's figure out a better way to do it. So yeah, I'm committed to the idea that we're gonna have great rail transportation. We have Amtrak now. Could there be ways that we could allow for other competition with Amtrak on the rails? Possibly. But this is in your control. So I'm not trying to kill it. I'm trying to go, how can we make it better?
Thank you. These are complex questions.
Very
that,
complex.
Consultation with this committee will help sustain our national rail network. Shipbuilding is an area where I suspect we have strong agreement. I recently visited Philly's Hanwha Shipyard, as did you. Senator McCormick and I have talked regularly about this. My community is just 20 to 30 minutes from that shipyard, and we'd like to contribute. Some of the folks who will work at the expanded Hanwha Shipyard, I am the ranking appropriator on defense, and I think the shot in the arm that MARAD has given to the shipyard by purchasing 5 DOT ships has been critically vital. Just if you would briefly speak to DOT's plans to invest in and reinvigorate our nation's shipyards. This is one that is right on the edge of being able to come into the family of naval shipyards.
Yeah, so I love the president's vision. I couldn't share it. I think most people would agree that the vision of building ships again in America is important. Working through the components of how we fund it, how we are able to give a shot in the arm to the industry, because it's going to need support. And thinking through how we do that is what's happening right now. I think all of us working together is going to be what's necessary to revitalize these ports. But again, you look around the country and you see how we used to be a powerhouse, and they've just, many of them have been mothballed. Again, it's going to be a bipartisan effort for all of us.
This is one that's back in production thanks to DOT, and I know Senator Collins has expressed a very strong interest in it. A number of members have maritime academies in their home states and would like to see this shipyard also become productive. I look forward to working with you on that.
You as well.
In the last 2 minutes, if I could, just a theme across a number of questions. You've frozen 3,000 federal grants for review and have released several hundred. Just to compare, there was a bipartisan effort at infrastructure investment under the last administration, and that produced a lot of new programs, more than 40 new programs, more than $300 billion in funding. The DOT under the previous administration signed grant agreements for more than 3,300 projects. And under the first Trump administration, because there wasn't a bipartisan commitment to dramatic increases in infrastructure, just 900. So to say that they hadn't managed to execute enough agreements, and that's why you've got such a backlog, Biden's DOT increased its pace of grant agreement execution from 330 in its first year to 1,500 its last year. There's a reason that there was a dramatic increase in the volume of grant agreements. It's because we came together in a bipartisan way to significantly increase our infrastructure investment. To me, the grants that are being reviewed that were appropriated and authorized by Congress ought to be moving more quickly than they are, and I hope you will speed up that process going forward.
So I haven't frozen anything. So if you have a grant agreement, that money is flowing. That has not been stopped. And what we've done is asked to repurpose some of the requirements inside of those grant agreements. We're not going to enforce the climate or the social justice, but if you have a grant agreement and you have a project that's moving, the money is going on those projects. They haven't been stopped. They haven't been frozen. And even on the announced projects that don't have grant agreements, we're moving. Again, quickly, I'll show you that I've got a month-by-month chart. I'll share it with you if you want, and you can look at how we've done compared to what the last administration. And you're not going to say we're wildly slower. We're actually doing pretty well, and I think it's going to speed up as well. So we're not trying to hold anything up. We're not trying to slow down or freeze, but I am trying to pull out some things I think are going to cost you and your projects more money. And if we can build quicker, and we can build with smarter requirements, I think that we have more money then to build more of your projects, which everyone wants more projects.
I'd welcome a quick call about that outcome, which, as you describe it, is something I would embrace and support. I'd like to see the projects move forward. Obviously, in my state, I think literally every senator has said the same about this.
And I'll send over the month-by-month analysis to your office.
And forgive me, Tim and Sherry Lilly, we are sorry for your loss, and we are sorry for the ways in which air safety and tragic air accidents have impacted so many families, principally yours. And we appreciate not just your presence here, but what it means that you continue to advocate for FAA reform. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and thank you both.
Senator Hoeven.
Yeah, I'd like to extend my condolences to the Lilly family as well, and all the families that have lost people in these accidents, and why it's so important that we take action to prevent that every way we can. Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here today. And you mentioned this natural gas project in Louisiana, and that it hasn't been officially announced yet. And Kennedy's gone now. So I'm wondering, is there any chance we could move that to North Dakota ave?
Yeah, I don't think so.
We have a lot of energy up there, and
lot of
I know your staff's going to want to consider that carefully.
I think that cake is baked.
Yeah, okay.
It's-
Well, it
Senator
hadn't been
Kennedy
announced,
gets
so,
it.
I just
Right.
checked.
He's watching right now, though, I think.
Yeah, I'm
He's-
sure he is. Thanks for being here. Air traffic controllers, we're down about 3,500 less than what we want. You talked about that, but really, we need to do more, not just at the academy, but outside the academy. And as you know, we have the largest flight training school at the University of North Dakota in the country, and do a lot of air traffic control training there as well. And the key is to train to the test, not to train to the academy, and that helps the academy from being a bottleneck. And so the Air Traffic Control Workforce Development Act that I've put forward with Gene Shaheen, as well as Senator Moran and Senator Duckworth, allows schools that you certify, that FAA certifies, to train to the test to help you reduce that backlog and get these air traffic controllers trained. Are you supportive of that legislation?
I'm supportive of expanding our capacity to get more young people trained up as air traffic controllers, getting them, through training and being able to pass the test. And by the way, my brother-in-law went to UND and went to flight school and thoroughly enjoyed it. You guys have a great facility. And again, I think there's 5 in the country. I might be getting that number wrong. I do think there's an opportunity for you all to do competitive grants because it's expensive. And you don't have a ton of kids coming through, so the economics might be more challenging for the schools. If there's a competitive grant to get really great equipment in some of these other places would be probably helpful.
Well, and we include that, and you referenced it, but also for equipment in the tower that lets these air traffic controllers train on the job. That would enable you to move them around more too, because you'd have some of that training equipment, as well as retention bonuses and recruitment bonuses. So it's all designed to help you get air traffic controllers faster. We're going to do something in reconciliation, as you're aware, to kickstart at a very significant level the equipment. This will help you with the actual air traffic controllers.
I would welcome the help.
Yeah, thanks, Secretary. And then speaking of the University of North Dakota, we also have up there, it was the first unmanned aviation, UAS, test site in the country, in part because I helped write that legislation, but mostly because we have such a tremendous school up there. And then at the Grand Forks Air Force Base, we have the Grand Sky Technology Park. FAA has agreed to provide us with the unfiltered raw data feed, which we need to develop drone and counter-drone traffic in the NAS. Are you aware of that? And we still have some final details as far as the handoff, even though it's been formally agreed to. But this is going to enable us to continue all the work we're doing with drones, but also really develop counter-drone technology. So Senator Gillibrand talked about some of the legislative authorities. This is what actually enables you to detect and take down drones in the NAS. And we have 900 miles of border responsibility up there, and CBP co-located with all of this, flying manned and unmanned aircraft. You need to come see it. Will you come out and see it, and will you support what we're doing there and help us finish getting this raw data feed so we can keep it moving?
Yeah, so I may not have known about this, but I think Secretary Burgum has mentioned this to me like 10 times, so I'm well aware of what you're doing. And I checked on this before the hearing. I believe that We're actually waiting for some information to come from North Dakota to the FAA, but we are committed. This is going to be a great program. I think this is important.
It is.
And you're the right state to do it. So you'll have, and if I can maybe coordinate with you after to let you know what we need, but we're going to go forward quickly, and I'd love to come and see it in North Dakota.
Great.
After I go see Senator Schatz in Hawaii.
Oh, sure. Okay. Well, that's all time of year. Time of year is a
That's
big
true.
factor in that, yeah.
That's true.
And we're not competing on the same, we want you in the summer and he can have you in the winter. Appreciate your support on that, and I'll double check too, if there's something on our end. Last thing is we have a program that Tammy Baldwin, bipartisan, and she and I were able to pass in the Reauthorization Act for FAA in 2024. It's the Vets to Wings Act. We actually passed it. It was called the American Aviator Act. It allows some of the schools on a pilot basis, like ours again, through 28 to take 4 veterans. When they leave the service and they want to go through flight training, the GI Bill and the tuition assistance doesn't cover the full cost of the flight training. This program makes up that difference. So it's a twofer. You get those veterans into their next career, and it helps us with the pilot shortage. So we want to make that, we want to actually expand that beyond just the pilot schools like ours that are doing it. Again, it's authorized through 28, but it's something we want to work on as a permanent program to help our great vets. So would like your input, help, and support on that.
Yeah, I would love to work with you and learn more about the program.
Okay. Again, thanks for the way you've grabbed this task with both hands, and you're going at it the right way, and your ability to communicate is tremendous, and it's very helpful in terms of getting this huge, and very important project done. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Durbin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here. I want to say to the Lillis family, my sympathies go to you and your family for what you've gone through, and my gratitude goes to you for continuing the cause of air safety in memory of your loss. Senator Duckworth, my colleague, being a helicopter pilot and knowing aviation inside and out, has briefed me on what happened that terrible evening. But I've flown that configuration 1,000 times as a passenger. We've got to do something, and thank you for reminding us of our responsibility. Secretary Duffy, when we met, we talked about Chicago and aspects of Illinois that I'm representing and concerned about. And Chicago, of course, is the rail hub of North America, more track radiating in more directions than any other city. 25% of all freight trains, 50% of all intermodal trains go through that city, and we need help. We talked about commitments that have been made, work that is being done, it's all good. But the next aspect of it is the continuation of a grant, a $93 million grant, which for some reason has been held up. So I'll ask you to please have your staff put it on the list and try to figure out what we can do to get this moving forward. It is critical for efficient train operation in our country. Are you familiar with it?
So not specifically, Senator, I know that we have approved 13 grant agreements over the last several months for $270 million. When we came into office, there were 89 awards without grant agreements. So we're moving through the backlog in your state, but the backlog is real in Illinois.
Good.
But by the way, I am aware of listen, there's a lot of infrastructure. Again, you have the Great Lakes, you have rail, you are a central hub, especially in Chicago. I know that in Wisconsin, we do appreciate your support of the Packers. we know you're a fan.
Take those words down. Let me raise another issue. With all the time that I spend on airplanes, millions of miles, not as much as Brian Schatz, but close to it, you come to really appreciate not only the pilots, the professional crew, but certainly the flight attendants and the important work that they are engaged in. And so I found it kind of interesting recently when I observed that there is a growing trend on the planes that I fly on. After the safety announcements, after we are all seatbelts on, then the advertising of credit cards and frequent flyer programs begins. And you wonder why, of all the things that they could talk about, and I wish most of the time they talked about none of it, why would they pick that? Well, it's because sadly, some of the major airlines make more money on their credit cards and frequent flyer programs than on air operations. I didn't believe that until I saw it in print. It's a fact. And you have to ask yourself, who is at least making sure that the passenger gets fair treatment in the frequent flyer programs? I've introduced legislation to do that. So we could work together, I hope, and make certain that there's honesty in terms of dealing with these frequent flyer miles. They mean an awful lot to many people. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do, Senator, there's going to be a lot of things we agree on. That is one we will not agree on. When I was in the House, I was on the opposite side of this issue than you were. I do think a lot of people in America aren't able to afford a trip. They oftentimes will use their points, whether it's for a hotel or for an airline ticket. And I think that's a value for folks. What I would support, though, is I think that, you know, if there's, and we're seeing this more and more, if there's an extra fee that you want to charge for using a credit card with merchants, I think that's appropriate. So there's the consumer's paying for the cost of the card.
This is a separate issue. Senator Marshall and I are keeping this separate.
You are, okay.
What we're trying to
What is this issue is?
We're trying to make sure that when they say that you have so many points and it equals so many benefits that you can use on that airline, that there be disclosure so the customer knows when they change the rules. Right now.
So I'd like to learn more about that. I'm very astute at, I think I have a credit card for all the airlines, and I know which ones are better than others, and all hotels too. I guess I would love to partner with you and look at what you're considering on the transparency side.
Just to make sure there's fairness to the passengers and disclosures if there are changes in policy.
I'm all about transparency and fairness.
On the other issue, I've given up on you long ago. So thank you thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Boozman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being here. I apologize for running back and forth. It's so busy here and visiting with people in the hall. One of the people that I was visiting with is a mutual friend, Ambassador Mark Green.
Good
He reminded me that he was so proud of you as being our Secretary of Transportation now, and yet your real claim to fame in his part of the country was being a world champion lumberjack. So again, you're just a Renaissance guy.
Very kind of him to mention. He was a wonderful congressman, a great ambassador.
Yeah, he's just a wonderful person. Let me just, and you don't have to respond to this, but I also want to express my thoughts also about how important the essential air service is and the contract towers. I know you know that coming from the part of the country that you represented. Also, I know that you understand that the most recent census revealed that more than half of the counties across the nation saw a population decline. In Arkansas, 53 of our 75 counties experienced the same, about 53% nationwide. While rural America's population is declining, its infrastructure remains just as vital in our interconnected communities. As urban and suburban projects are often given priority and rural bases are shrinking, how can we ensure that rural infrastructure gets the necessary support that it needs?
Well, I think it's that you have to pay attention to it. You have to understand it, and it's having people from rural America fight for it. I think that's critical. And I come from rural America. On the discretionary grants, and there's tools and help that's offered to smaller communities to try to access additional resources. But it goes to the point that this has become so complicated. What we're working on, and hopefully we can do it, is how can we make this process simpler? So you just can't be a big institution that can apply and access competitive money. It's accessible for smaller communities where resources truly are just as needed.
And I'm glad you bring that up. That was really my next question. We see this a lot in USDA grants and things. We're in a situation now where these, the ability to apply is so complex, so complicated. You're talking about spending thousands of dollars for grant writers. And again, the bigger communities can do that. That's simply something that we've got to concentrate on and across government, particularly I think with transportation, USDA, those kind of grants because it does make it very, very difficult for our smaller communities, really for anybody, in order to access those grants. And that's not a cost driver, that's a cost saver.
And I don't mean to offend anybody, but I do think if you look with the expansion of high-speed internet, and after and during COVID, you saw a lot of people who want to move to rural America. They actually like it. It's a beautiful place, and so maybe we're going to see those numbers change. But with that, is you need the infrastructure to go along with it. Right. Again, I think it's been interesting to see how people have gone back to the rural part of this country.
There's been a lot of bipartisan support in Congress to modernize how we plan, build, and maintain infrastructure with emerging technologies. From advanced digital construction management systems to automated inspection tools like drones, remote sensing. These innovations can help address workforce shortages, improve project delivery times, and enhance safety across our transportation network. How do you envision the department accelerating the adoption of digital technologies across all modes of transportation?
I think that we are, sometimes we're thought of as, hard hats and light reflecting vests. I think we're in the most innovative space in government. Whether it is autonomous vehicles and drones and these eVTOLs, also with the technology that can be deployed in construction. So I am in favor of exploring all options that can reduce our costs, increase safety. And so if you have ideas on things that I should be looking at, I'm happy to do that. But I do think we are at the cusp of a technological revolution in regard to the way that people move and the way that our products move in this country, which is, again, I mean, we have to get it right. You can't go too fast with some of this stuff, but you can't go too slow either. And so getting the right pace on the rules and regulations is going to be critical for the department over the course of the next 3.5 years.
Very good. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Senator Schatz.
Thank you, Secretary. Thank you, Chair and Vice Chair, and to the Lilly family. Thank you for your presence, and I'm sorry for your loss. I want to follow up on the 3,200 or so grants frozen. I understand that if the award has been made and the money has been obligated, that you're not freezing those dollars. You are pausing for review. I'm trying to get the terminology right. Post-announcement, pre-obligation to kind of pull out those things that you consider to be extraneous to transportation. Am I characterizing that about right?
Well, there's no freeze, but yes, we're
Pausing
talking
for review. Yeah. Okay.
I'm not pausing with this. So what it kind of just
Sure.
So what I'm doing is as I'm crafting the grant agreement, some of the language that was required in the NOFO, it's easy. We just don't put it in the grant agreement. So it's not a pause. It's not a freeze. It's just we've taken the language out for the grant agreement.
Sure. Good news, bad news, right? You're characterizing this as easy, not terribly controversial. It's a new administration. You are within your rights to modify grant criteria, certainly before the money is obligated. I understand all that. The problem is time, right? We are about 4 months into this, or a little less than 4 months into this, and there are a bunch of things that are just like plainly not climate, right? Evacuation routes, like hillside stabilization. And so my more basic question is, I know you care about metrics. I know your team is trying to metabolize all of these. What's the throughput capacity of the department to get these 3,200 grants reviewed and obligated and out? Is it 300 a month? 300 a week? Do you think you're going to be done by June? What's the time frame? Because it's a little bit of a black box. This is information. This hearing's useful because it gives us some reassurance that, they're not actually stopped. But I think it's fair for our state departments of transportation to kind of know it's going to be June before it's done. It's going to be next week. It could be later this year. Can you give us a sense for timing?
So I appreciate the question, and I think that's a really good question. So that I've told you we've done over 400. At this pace, which I'm proud of the pace that we have done thus far, it is not fast enough. If again, this is going to take us multiple years at this pace to get it done. So that is unacceptable. And I have countless meetings every week about how we can speed up the process to get more money out the door, more grant agreements done. So I take your point. I'm proud of the work we've done so far, but the mission is to pick it up dramatically.
Yeah, and at some point you run into a potential, even if it's inadvertent, you run into an impoundment issue, right? You have to spend these dollars, and especially since the grant awards were given and the state departments of transportation, sometimes county departments of transportation, they have to spend money to gear up for contract management. You've got staging costs, so this is not free to do. So I just really do encourage you not just to pick up the pace as a sort of generic proposition, but to get back to members of the House and the Senate on a bipartisan basis to say, you know, this is where we're going to get and by when. So speaking of which, I want to cover one other thing in the kind of, I call it de-wokeifying stuff.
Can I just, on the impound, like, I'm not trying to impound anything.
I know you're not.
I'm trying, so if there's money that's about to run out, I'm trying to move that, I'm trying to elevate that and move that more quickly so you don't lose dollars.
Sure, and you and I had a brief conversation about bikes.
Yes.
Okay? And then the department issued additional guidance on bike infrastructure. And this is like I don't even ride a bike particularly often, but I just think it's a little nuts that bikes have become some sort of like climate priority, and therefore people who are right of center are like, bikes are a climate thing. Bicycles are bicycles. Everybody rides a bike. Kids ride bikes, families ride bikes. Every community, rural, red, purple, blue, you know, should have a safe way for people to ride bikes. Can we please take the question of utilizing bikes safely out of whatever fight we're going to have on a partisan basis about climate policy?
So I don't see bikes and climate together, but I like bikes too. Bikes are wonderful. My kids ride them.
Okay, can you review the additional sort of restrictions or scrutiny that some of these bike projects have gotten?
So so can I explain my concern about if there was some of the requirements in the last administration was, are you adding, you know, bike lanes and walking paths to, you know, your construction project? Like, that's what they wanted to see. And if there's some places across this country where we don't need bike lanes, why are we adding bike lanes onto what should be, you know, just roadways?
No one wants to ride a bike.
Right, yeah, go ahead.
Because I am out of time, and there's a vote and some other members who want to talk. But the problem here, right, is everybody understands how this was done, which is you have so many thousands of contracts, people controlled F for certain words. And so some bike projects are just bike projects. Some projects are adding criteria to a rail or pedestrian or car project to say, and also there's this new requirement. But it's such a blunt instrument that you're blocking stuff that I think you and I, on a common sense basis, would say, yes, we should do it. And I just want one more question, which I'll get out and take for the record. But again, on timeframes, and let's get some specificity. You got to do a bunch of things to upgrade the air traffic control system, including and especially the telecommunications upgrades. If you could give us both some fidelity on costs, what you anticipate asking the Congress for, and also specifically the time frame for resolving the Newark issues, whether that's weeks or months or whatever. I just think the traveling public needs to know exactly what that's going to be. Thank you.
If you want to call, I'd be happy to talk more about bikes. I don't think we're that far away on bike and bike usage.
I don't think we are. I just think in the execution of some of these procedures that we're talking past each other.
Very well. Thank you.
Senator Van Hollen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Secretary, welcome. And let me start by thanking you for reaching out to Governor Moore in Maryland early in your tenure to discuss Maryland infrastructure priorities, and especially your commitment to making sure that we rebuild the Key Bridge. I just want to thank you.
I had a great conversation with the governor and his team. They came to DOT, which was very nice of them.
Yeah, it's a big project, and we are glad to have your support. Now let me turn to an area of disagreement. On Monday, Maryland joined 19 other states to sue you in your capacity as Secretary of Transportation at DOT for what they describe as illegally withholding or threatening to withhold critical transportation funds to try to require those states to enforce federal immigration law. Mr. Secretary, I don't want to get into the merits of this right now. I think that I think the states will prevail. I think that's an inappropriate use of your effort to leverage transportation funds. But my question is this: does that decision, that conditionality, apply to previously awarded multi-year grants? In other words, there are grants that have been awarded that take place, they spend out over a period of time. So my question is, are you intending to retroactively apply that condition?
No.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to get that clarification. Let me now also thank the Lilly family for all your efforts to make sure we prevent future tragedies like the one that took the life of your son. And I do want to talk about the situation at DCA, because I know that, just yesterday in the Commerce Committee, we heard testimony from folks at FAA that there had been over, I think, 15,000 concerning incidents at DCA since October 2021. And the response from the FAA official there was that they, quote, missed something, unquote. That's scary. That's very scary. And it's especially scary because we should have had that information, in my view, when the Congress considered the FAA reauthorization bill. And there were a number of us at the time, it was mostly the senators from this region, right? The two Virginia senators, myself, and then Senator Cardin, who were very concerned about adding additional airline routes.
Slots, right?
Slots, yeah. There were five pairs that were added. And I remember talking to then Secretary Buttigieg, who I think was probably in this room sitting right there, and he expressed concern as well about additional pressures that would be put on the already most congested airport in the country if we added those slots. This information was not available then, but there was lots of reason for concern. Those slots have since been added, I think early this year. Those additional slots were added to the most congested airport in the country. And I know you put safety first, right? So my question to you, Mr. Secretary, is will you work with us to re-examine that decision? Because the four of us voted against the entire FAA authorization at that time because of our concern about safety. And given all the information that's now available, I hope we will go back to see if that will aggravate an already very difficult problem.
I think it would be appropriate for this body to have a conversation about what is appropriate and what is the capacity that DCA can handle. I think you all should discuss that, no doubt. By the way, there was 1,500. You mentioned there was
15,000.
80, but 85 were critically close in that time period.
Yeah.
And so and I take your point on that. We're trying to, at the FAA now, say what else should we see that we're not seeing? Because that should have been seen. That cross-traffic should have been stopped. So we're doing that work right now. We're using some AI tools. But also, I think it's my responsibility to talk about the air traffic control system and say that is a foreseeable danger.
Yeah.
And that's why we have to have conversations about safety. And that's how all of us doing our jobs together.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate your efforts on that. And let me just say, I listened carefully to your answer with respect to the additional slots. And I agree it's a conversation we need to have up here. But my question to you, Mr. Secretary, is given your important role, will you engage with us in that discussion and a determination about whether or not we now need to roll back some of those slots?
I would welcome the opportunity to engage with all of you on that conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. And if there are no further questions, senators have 7 days to submit any additional questions for the subcommittee's official hearing record. We request DOT's responses within 30 days of that, and the subcommittee stands in recess, subject to call of the chair. I want to say thank you to the Lillies, and please know that our condolences are definitely genuine and we are so sorry for your loss, but thank you for being here and being the advocate. We're now adjourned.
Thank you.